Thursday, February 16th, 2023. In episode 8 of Desert Skies, a visitor from the fourth sphere arrives to fill Tendi and Mac in on what's really going on. That's me trying to avoid any spoilerifics there. Episode 1 of Season 2 of Bridgewater sees the supernatural thriller audio drama return with a vengeance. Actor Alan Tudyk has replaced his colleague from Firefly, the actor Nathan Fillion, as the voice of Thomas Bradshaw. Phase 0 saw Brandon, Jenna, Jamie and Aaron being joined by YouTube and TikTok sensation Straw Hat Goofy to talk about what's going on in the MCU, including their non-spoiler reactions to having already seen Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, the third in the Ant-Man series of films. The first episode of the Ariel Nissenblatt and Tim Villegas presented Trailer Park podcast saw them looking at a trailer for the podcast Neurodiversity, which is a show about inclusivity and people from all backgrounds. Chapter 53 of the Icarus Complex was Elena Part 2. I like the character Liam's feelings about Elena, and the romantic in me hopes for the best, but the pessimistic side thinks it might not work out. You can hear me turning my pages because this is scripted and I'm not very good at making it sound natural. Friday, February the 17th. The episode of the audio drama Desert Skies titled Perfection is a Concept asked the age-old question of what is perfection and does it actually exist? Carrying on with the first season of Blood on the Tracks, Episode 8 looked at the subject of Phil Spector and Darlene Love. An interesting subject, with Spector using the great talent that she had, and very often, quite frankly, and hopefully I won't get a telling off for this one, but he really did take the piss. Comic Book Nation saw the usual crew of Kofi, Matt and Janelle being joined by the birthday boy, Connor Casey. Happy birthday, Connor. I wished it him on the day itself, actually. Review It Yourself saw Sean being joined once again by Bill from Bill Reads Bad Reviews, in this continuing bromance of those two appearing on the show together. This time they continued their journey through Gerard Butler films with the film Angel Has Fallen. I think that they should eventually do the film P.S. I Love You and have Bill's wife Madison, who a lot of people know as the Fit Flamingo, have Madison on the show because, you know, she loves those sort of films apparently, and it would be fun. I've probably suggested that before, to be honest. Beauty Unlocked saw Carissa continuing her look at the questionable lifestyle of the French king Louis the some number or other. You know, you lose track of all these numbers of these kings, there's so bloody many of them. He was not a gentleman, but was a selfish, debauched, filthy beep. Saturday, February the 18th, 2023. The episode of The Happy Place from February 13th saw Fern Cotton speaking with author and podcaster Jay Shetty. There were a couple of takes from this that really stood out for me, and this is going to be my longest, probably ever, look or detail in one of these pods about a show. Firstly, his saying that when things are bad, work hard, and when things are good, work harder. This means that when you are in a good place, you should keep working at keeping that level, because complacency can then set in. Another take from the episode was to understand whether you are naturally a venter, a hider, or an exploder when it comes to situations and discussing them. I saw that there was a bonus episode of Phase Zero from comicbook.com about the film Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. When they said from the off that it would be a spoiler-filled episode, I stopped there. Sometimes I don't give a stuff about spoilers, but this time I changed my mind and decided that I'll listen to it after I've watched the film. And when I wrote this script for this episode, it was earlier in the day when we watched it that night at the cinema. 7.5 out of 10 if anyone's interested. The show Greek Mythology Short Stories came back for a new series, but this time Eric is talking about a murder case from recent years. Now, I can understand him wanting to talk about something else, but it really doesn't fit the show's title. Not that I'm moaning about it per se, but I really loved his short, under 10-minute long looks at Greek mythology. And this, too, is a good show with about the same sort of amount of time. But it's just not the same show. And I feel awful saying that. I'm still behind on keeping up with the Kardashians, listening to an episode from the end of October. It's interesting to hear the reactions to events of the day, though, knowing what will happen. For them, James Gunn and Peter Safran had just been made the joint presidents of DC Films. Let's find out what they say when they find out that Henry Cavill is no longer Superman in their universe. Sunday, February 19th, 2023. My drive to work was spent listening to an episode of Stu World Order from the archives, an episode from August the 15th, 2021. I keep up to date with the show, but occasionally I'll listen to an archive episode that I haven't listened to before, in the hope that eventually I will have heard every episode. Also, the show puts me in a good mood, which is why I very often listen to it on the way to work or the way back from work, because it's got that feel-good factor to it. This episode saw him being joined by the Manster, as he's called, from Pine Toe Comics, to watch Thor Ragnarok. The Manster is also responsible for Stu's show and website artwork. While I think of shows that put me in a good place, there was no new episode of Bill Reed's Bad Reviews during this weekend, and it's always a downer when Bill misses a week. It puts me on that little bit of sadness there, but I can understand he's busy. Lydia's Booktastic podcast saw Lydia offering up reading tips for anybody, not just people of young ages, but for anybody who wants to read. Buried on the Tundra saw me letting B. Nicole know that her sound was inaudible, and she did try to correct it. However, and I hate to say this, I'm really sorry, B, I still couldn't hear the case details. The episode of Atlas Obscura from April the 22nd, 2021 was about the dog Hachiko, the true story of which Hollywood stole, reshaped and moved to the US from Japan, once again showing that the US media just want to appropriate everything and pretend that it's from their country to make themselves look good. Chapter 13 of Bridgewater. What can I say that won't spoil this? Okay. Bells, rings, viscerations, and past repeating itself. Also, Will Wheaton. When They Was Fab from January the 16th saw Ed and John chatting about a Granada TV special from 1965. Ed was suffering with COVID at this point to record the episode, the same as I did last year when I was recording a couple of episodes with COVID. They asked about the late actor, singer, lyricist and the former husband of Joan Collins, Mr. Anthony Newley. I will say that I'm a big fan of Anthony Newley's. What a surprise. He's a great raconteur who people should find out more about. One fact is this. He wrote the lyrics to the theme to Goldfinger, and I suggest that people go online and listen to the demo recording that he made. It is absolutely incredible. It's a really good demo. Gary Arndt mentioned in episode 9 of Everything Everywhere Daily about interactions between ancient Rome and ancient China, which was fascinating. I didn't actually understand that there was communication between them back then. You know, dumb Marv was under the assumption that, you know, there was no interaction with anybody from Europe to China back in the 300, in the third, well, it'd be the 4th century, wouldn't it? 300 onwards, AD. But anyway, as this was from July 2020, and it's a daily show, I think I've got a long way to go before I catch up with these episodes. Yeah. Monday, February 20th, 2023. On the night train. It's still keeping the pace up, no pun intended, although the abrupt ending did take me by surprise, because normally it's got a musical ending and it tells you to come back for the next episode, blah blah blah, next week or week after, or blah blah, whatever. But it wasn't. It just finished and went on to the next pod. The Jerry Anderson podcast had a story relating to Space 1999 in the Fab Facts, and as a fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which their daughter Juliet Landau was in, I wonder whether it was her or the elder daughter of Martin and Landau and Barbara Bain that was involved in the story that was mentioned. Face the Music, an Electric Light Orchestra song by song podcast. I didn't write that bit out, I actually remember that. Yep. I love that the Erics are now looking at the pre-ELO bands, and I'm really looking forward to hearing their take on songs by The Move, because I am an absolutely huge fan of The Move. They are an incredible band. The Raconteurs saw Gary and Guy chatting with the PR guru Tony King, who has so many stories of working with members of the Beatles, Elton John, Queen, and so many other people. That guy. Anecdotes galore. Anyway, I listen to so many other shows, but as I'm trying to keep this show short, which I mentioned last week, I can't really go into detail on much more. Anyway, thanks for listening, everyone. Take care.